we'll go ahead. Cool. So, hey, as folks filter in, I'll go ahead and kick it off and just talk a little bit about Boots to Books, which is the organization putting this event on. And then we'll dive a little bit in. So Boots to Books is a 501c3 nonprofit. Everything that you ever see us do or offer is completely free to you. And the services we offer are mainly around education and employment. So whether you want a scholarship to go get your textbooks, or you want to go get a certification without paying for it, you're looking for help building your resume, preparing for an interview, or at that last final stage of actually getting a job, whether it be through a hiring fair, through our open roles newsletter, or a couple other vectors, you can come to Boots to Books for it. So I won't go on and on too much about Boots to Books, but in the context of this event, we have one resource that I think will be extremely useful for anyone here. And that's the Boots to Books Masterclass. One person you see here, Greg Tomchick, down there in the bottom corner, at least for me, I don't know where he is for everyone else, is actually an instructor on that. And so what the Masterclass is like everything else we do, completely free. It's a compilation of, I think 150 videos now and growing that break everything down in the transition, every pain point you may have, into bite-sized videos. So 5 to 10 minutes, and they all provide follow-on resources for you afterwards, which is pretty incredible. And it's people like Greg who've started businesses. It's recruiters at companies like Adobe, it's VA benefits counselors, and they're all sharing with you the things that we struggle with when we transition from the service. So I'll share that link right in a few minutes. But before that, if you want a certification scholarship, you're looking to attend a free hiring fair with companies looking to hire from the military community and a number of other things, make sure you follow Boots to Books, link also to come. For the structure of this event, what we're going to do is we're going to start it off with Liliana from Sabio, who's brought some really, really innovative and cool resources here for future founders looking to build an MVP. If you're wondering what an MVP is, we'll talk about that too. And then we're going to dive into each one of these founders you see sitting around me, who's going to share a little bit about their journey, the things they've learned, and some tips they have for you to supercharge your journey as a founder. And then we'll get into your questions and give you some more information to leave with and keep growing. So without further ado, I'll stop talking and we can get to what everyone came here for, some great resources and information. Liliana, what is the great, amazing resource that you brought for us?
Yeah, well, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. Nice to meet you all. Just so that you know, today I'm actually celebrating my 10 years of launching our company. So we have been doing this for quite some time. And so Sabio is a coding bootcamp, and we do two things. One, we help people become software engineers. And the way that we do that is that each cohort is paired with an external entrepreneur. So I'd love to have many entrepreneurs here be paired with one of our cohorts. And then our senior instructor behaves like your technical product manager. They are the person that will assign a specific task, a specific feature to the right student, and they will be the ones that are going to facilitate all of the interaction between the entrepreneur and the student so that it is very, very controlled, methodical process. We do not charge a penny. We do not take any equity, but what we do need is your patience and your subject matter expertise. So what you need to do, if many of you have some kind of idea, if you have anything like PowerPoint presentations, if you have Excel sheets, if you have disparate data sources that you want to bring together into some type of web application, we will build that for you. I have given Peter the URL where you can go to our website and submit a request. And like I said, you're not going to pay anything, but you do need to pay with your patience and your consideration, because we do have to onboard new entrepreneurs, and our senior staff will work with you probably between 1 to 2 months to get you ready before we put you in an actual build. An MVP is an opportunity for you to build out something so that you can go, if you want, you can raise money on it, or you can test a hypothesis. You can say, look, if I build a platform that inventories every single type of vacant land parcel available in North America, I can get people to pay me for access to that, right? We can help you build that MVP. And then depending on what you do with it, if you actually go out and get feedback from your customers and you want to come back and you want to build a second or a third version of your product, we will be more than happy to continue to work with you. We like having relationships with entrepreneurs. So if you're engaged and you're responsive, you attend demos, you ask questions, we will be more than happy to continue to build a product for you, a version 2, a version 3. So this can save you anywhere between, $10,000 to $100,000 to $200,000 in building something that you can then show people, get their reaction, watch what they do. Because I personally have done this many times where I build something and then I watch a user use it and they're like, my flow is not right. And developers are very expensive. It doesn't matter where you have them. If you have them overseas, if you have them down the street in California, developers are expensive and they don't know what it is exactly that you have in your head. So by working with our senior engineers, you're going to have an opportunity to understand what it means to work with a tech product manager, someone who's orchestrating the entire thing. And you're going to see how developers work. If for some reason you love one of the engineers that are in your team, you are more than happy to hire them. Once again, we do not charge anything for a placement fee. So this is really an opportunity for you to get something, a straw man, something out there in the wild, get feedback. And if you want to come back for a second or third iteration of the product, if you're responsive to our engineers, we'll be more than happy to continue to work with you. You can be anywhere in the world. You just have to make sure that you respond to email, you're able to hop on Zooms, and that you have some kind of subject matter expertise. That's really what we look for. Someone who's an expert in some field that wants to create something that's really awesome and unique and different. So happy to answer questions. Peter has the link. It's a really simple process to get in our queue. And then once you start getting emails from the team, you just have to be responsive, right? If they say, hey, we're available, when do you want to have your first product meeting? We need to hear from you. If we don't, then we'll just move on to the next entrepreneur.
That definitely makes sense. Thank you so much, Liliana. And yeah, for those in the audience, if you're just starting looking at building a business and building a product, what Liliana hit on is completely correct. It's very, very expensive to pay someone to do it. No matter where you do it, if you outsource, if you have a friend do it that gives you a discounted rate, it doesn't matter. Boots to Books has looked into this. I've looked into this with other companies, and there's no getting around it. And usually the options that face you are bootstrap it internally. So hopefully have somebody technical on board, or try and raise money at a valuation you probably don't agree with, you probably think is far too low, or from friends and family, and pay someone a lot of money to build it. This is now your third option, which is get help from people that may be more technical than anyone internal and still keep the cash and equity that you have on hand, which is a pretty awesome offer. So thanks so much. And I will, for all those attending, if you missed the link, no worries. Every person who registered will get the recording, the link, all the info you need. So you can worry about watching and you don't have to write all this down. But awesome. Hey, thank you so much, Liliana. So we're going to go ahead now and we're going to jump in with the 5 founders. We're going to start, we're just going to go around. If you'd introduce yourself and the company that you built and a little bit about what the company does. We'll just go around in a roundtable introductions first, and then we can dive into the actual meat and potatoes of it all. So maybe I'll start on my right, which is only the right for me. So Joey, if you'd go ahead and start us off, we can go Greg, Brett, Robyn, and then Marlene.
Well, hello, everybody. My name is Joey Mack, aka the Smoking Panda, and I am the Chief Smoking Officer for the Mobile Cigar Lounge located in Hopatcong, New Jersey. As you can see behind me, we smoke. So if you smoke them if you got them. So what we do is we bring the ultimate cigar and whiskey experience to weddings and private parties nationally. We've traveled as far west as California, north as Maine, as far south as St. Croix, or Florida, if you want to count the states. But we hire veterans and first responders and those connected in our company. And what we do is we create a special moment where couples and hosts are able to create those memorable experiences through a cigar. So we like to say that the cigar is a vessel and the opportunity is the experience. So we've been doing that for about 5 years now. We started in 2018, and I would say the origin of our story is the smoke pits back in the Middle East, in Iraq and Afghanistan. So that's how we built our business, totally bootstrapped. Myself, another Marine, and another Army veteran started this business 5 years ago, and we've been growing ever since. We've been doing about 1,200 events around the United States. So once again, as a quick introduction, my name is Joey, aka the Smoking Panda, and we are at the Mobile Cigar Lounge. Thank you again, Peter.
That's awesome. What a cool business. I mean, I'm also a little biased because I love cigars, so it obviously hit a chord with me. But that's very cool, and congratulations on 5 years.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, definitely. Greg, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, thanks so much, Peter. Joey, love the uniqueness, what you're bringing to the world. I think it's incredible. So pleasure to be here. Greg Tomchick with Valor Cybersecurity. We're a 2-year-old group of cybersecurity coaches that executives look to navigate cybersecurity in today's digital world. It's a great industry to be in. 3 out of the 5 team members on our team are veterans. Both of my parents were in the Navy. So it's definitely something near and dear to my heart, and really appreciate that level of service that you guys on the call provide. We're hiring currently, so looking forward to anybody that's interested in having a discussion. I'm looking forward to diving into some of the lessons I've learned in entrepreneurship. I didn't have anybody along my journey who was an entrepreneur, so I had to learn those hard lessons myself. So looking forward to sharing those with all you guys to really help you avoid some of the obstacles that I hit along the way. And thanks so much for letting me be here, Peter.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for coming on. I remember connecting with you, I guess, a little bit into your journey with Valor already, but not nearly where you are now, because you've grown so much. And it's amazing to see how much it's developed and been refined and grown. It's really, really amazing. I'm excited to hear about it. Brett, let's do it, brother.
Sounds good, Peter. Thanks for having me on. My name is Brett Currier. I founded VetGigs, a veteran talent marketplace, a few years ago. It's actually since been acquired by Act Now Education, the veteran nonprofit. And it was great because my end goal with starting it was to help as many veterans and military spouses as I could transition into strong, well-paying, white-collar employment. Because I found that a lot of battle buddies I had really, and actually myself, even when I got out of the Army, most of the jobs that were marketed to me weren't well paid. They weren't white collar, but they were either very blue collar, often low paying jobs, or law enforcement, which isn't for everyone. So it was honestly like the best scenario for me. And I've actually since transitioned, and I'm now working at Armanino, a top 20 consulting and CPA firm where I lead the strategy and transformation consulting practice here in Texas, growing our market here. It's an absolute blast. I love it. And it's great too, because now when I work in the veteran community, I'm able to talk about my entrepreneurship journey from the companies I've started and been on as a co-founder to what things are like in the white collar space from my time at Deloitte Consulting, Huron Consulting Group, and now Armanino. So really happy to be here with you all, share about resources, my journey, resources I wish I knew about when I was first going through, and answer any questions I can.
So thanks so much for coming on. And I think that consulting perspective will be interesting because it's, you're marrying the external advisory with the, actual founding and rolling up your sleeves and running of a business. So I think you'll have both of those insights, which will be really interesting. I definitely want to dive into those. So thanks for coming on. Robyn,
Absolutely.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, I am Robyn Grable. I'm the founder of Talents Ascend. I'm a Navy veteran. I served a long time ago, and darn, I wish I had met Liliana 5 years ago when I started what was then Veterans Ascend, because wow, did we spend a lot of money. But we'll talk about that, I'm sure, as a lesson learned. But so Veterans Ascend started in 2018 to eliminate the barriers for veterans to get to interviews, primarily resumes and applications first process. So we built a translator. It actually looks at the skills of an occupation in the military, not just the titles. So Brett, you were talking about, just being kind of pigeonholed into some of those roles. We built ours to be different and really look at the skills that go into those occupations and then match those skills to employers who need those specific skills. We added military spouses in 2019, and in 2020, the disability community. 2022, we merged everything together and became Talents Ascend. And that it's open to anybody, but we give priority to our veterans, military spouses, disability, and justice involved community. Anybody who really has a true barrier to getting to an interview. We don't use a resume in our process or an application first. And the employers that come to us and use our platform are truly intentional about valuing the veterans and military spouses that really have great skills, but just don't get recognized for them. So I'm excited and very grateful to be able to be here and share my lessons learned and just learn from everyone else as well. So thank you, Peter.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm very happy to have you on, and I've gotten the pleasure to work with Robyn a little bit, and it's been really amazing. So I'm excited to hear more about the history of the Ascend Collective. Marley, the last, certainly not the least, we saved the best for last, in fact. No, I'm just kidding, to the other four panelists. But please go ahead.
All right. Peter, thank you for having me on. My name is Marlene Andersch, and I am the CEO and founder of rockITdata. We've been in business for about 5 years, and the struggle has been real. So I am also very happy to share that with you. Joey, I want to say meow, and I want to say that I wish, when you look at entrepreneur journeys, sometimes when you look at starting the business, a lot of us think about the money that we make and not the love that we should have and passion that we should have for the types of businesses that we start. It makes it a lot easier when you think about starting your entrepreneurial journey. When you think about starting it, the most important thing, or the biggest lesson that I've learned, is sometimes you have to think about your passion and joy and not the money, and the money will come, because a lot of us start off saying, we're going to do this, we're going to have a great company, we're going to build it to be X, Y, and Z. But there are so many things that go into building a company. And it's hard. And just so you guys know, our journey, I started it off, it was me and one part-time person and a bunch of contractors. I'm an Air Force veteran, and when I got out, I started in tech. So I was in tech for 30 years before I made my jump. And when I made my jump, there were so many times where I wanted to jump back in and go, take me back to corporate world, because it is so much easier. But I am happy to be here. I love the accomplishments of what we've done over the last couple of years. We're almost at 200 people. And again, we continue to grow 350 to 400% year over year. So there are so many lovely lessons that I can definitely share with you. But thank you for having me, and I look forward to the rest of our conversations.
Awesome. That's incredible, and congratulations. I mean, that rate of growth is unreal, as I'm sure you're well aware. So congratulations, that's amazing. So now I want to dive into a little more, and we'll start with Brett, then we'll go to Marley, and we'll go from there in terms of the order. If you could just give us your founder's journey, your advice for the different stages of growing a company, anything you think pertinent. I'm going to give you the floor here, Brett, for about 15 minutes.
Sure. Yeah. Happy to jump in here, Peter. So I started my career in the U.S. Army. I was 17 when I joined up and served for 12 years in a variety of different roles. But my entrepreneurship journey actually started in the Army before I was in the Army, and I'll kind of explain why that was the case. I actually started my first legal business when I was, I think, 11 years old at the Army War College at Carlisle Barracks. I was actually there as a Army brat. My dad was attending the Army War College, and I had to shine his shoes every day anyways, as like part of my chores. And so I was thinking, why am I doing this for free and not making any money on it? I knew he would never pay me to do it, but I decided to make some flyers and start, advertising to shine shoes professionally on post, because one guy who did it was only doing it one day a week and not nearly get through everyone. So as my dad saw me putting up flyers, he's like, what you have a business license? Like, can't do that. Forced me to go get a business license, do the whole deal, and did great because there was a huge market for it. So I'm kind of a lifelong entrepreneur, and early on in my military career, actually started a on-the-go protein company after we all experienced Iraq, 120 degrees with the dirty shaker cups and just like that horrid smell that comes with it. That's something I'm sure many of you can relate to. And so we started a product called Way to Go that had 30 grams of dry whey protein in a bottle that you could just toss after use. And that was a great experience growing that as well, especially being in that environment, much like you have now, Joey, with other veterans, and you as well, Greg. And so love that, but learned a lot of lessons along the process because we were kind of stumbling through it, figuring things out as we went along. We were not able to find resources kind of at our fingertips, and really anything we learned, we were learning from other vets. And there wasn't nearly as much at the time on access for veteran entrepreneurs. So honestly, I think the main things I learned, the three things that can really support veterans on their journey now is direction, like finding the resources that are available, and there's many more available now than there were before, and then just holding on to that grit and tenacity. And Marley talked much about that. It's so much easier in the corporate world. Honestly, if you want easy, go back and work for the government. We've all been there for those veterans. And I'm not saying it's easy work, because we're all veterans. We know it wasn't easy at all times, but there are plenty of federal, state, and county jobs that you can go to and have a great quality of life. You can get off at normal hours, spend far more time with your family and friends, and have hobbies, but when you're an entrepreneur, that often goes out the window. Like you're working far more generally as an entrepreneur than you are, working for someone else. So it's a lot of work. And to Marley's point, you absolutely have to find something you're passionate about. I was once offered a CEO position of a pretty successful firefighting supply company business. And it was going to be pretty lucrative. But after about a month of doing due diligence, I realized, oh my God, I find no interest in firefighting supplies whatsoever. This is not just like widgets, And so I quickly moved on and ended up joining Deloitte Consulting from there, where I honed a lot of the skills that allowed me to be successful in later ventures and later on in my career. But with the direction, there's a lot of resources out there to help. Not only do you have access to mentors through great panels like this, but if you're not on Veterati, I highly recommend jumping on it. It is a huge database of different mentors, many of whom are very accomplished in their fields. And it'll allow you to set up a 1-hour phone call with them where you can jump on. Maybe you're interested in venture capital. You can jump on and talk to a venture capitalist. Maybe you're interested in consulting, or if you want to talk to a consultant in a certain area without paying them $350 an hour because, you're going through something, you're trying to work through a problem, and they can be a great resource for you. It's amazing. So get direction so you're not running 100 different directions, trying to go 100 miles an hour and making it an inch. Get that direction, hone your goal, get focused so you can actually get much farther. When you have your direction, you've developed your goal, you've built out your action plan on how you want to get to that goal. You can then start looking at what resources are available to me to help accomplish these different actions to achieve my ultimate goal. Well, there's so many out there. I just mentioned Veterati. That's a really big one. There are resources. I'll mention a couple other ones that I think are just good for all veterans to know. You can get a free Coursera license as a veteran or military spouse, and you can do that through a number of organizations. The one I talk about frequently is allegiantgiving.org. The reason why Allegiant Giving is great is because they give you access to Coursera as a veteran or military spouse or active service member. but they'll even give it to your spouse or your kid too. So, yeah, you can be a military child, 10 years old, taking a course from Yale, which is pretty amazing, for free, which civilians would pay $30,000 for. It's absolutely nuts. And so if you're trying to get a job, or you're just trying to learn a new skill that's going to help you in your entrepreneurship journey, we talk about the 80-20 rule a lot in consulting. So you can find the courses that are going to help you with kind of the 80% of the problem you're looking for, but that 20% of your time. It's really, really beneficial. Jump on, take advantage of it. Another one I would really recommend is learning about the different emergency financial resources out there. Most of you are pretty resourceful. You're very engaged in achieving your goals. So it's likely, you may not need these yourself. And I'm thankful I've never had to use these myself. But in the course of my work with veterans, I've had no less than 5, have big emergencies come up and receive frantic phone calls in the middle of the night from veterans or their spouses, because they were in danger of not being able to pay their rent, their mortgage, or had other major bills coming up that they needed to pay. So there's groups like Code of Vets is a big one that will help provide emergency payment in a pinch. And that can be really helpful for veterans in your network. So definitely some good ones. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of, I hit on a lot here. So I don't know if there's any additional questions you had, Peter.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that'll be a good way to go about it for the panelists. You want to tell your story, and then I'll hit you with a couple follow-ups. Brett, I think a good one is working in consulting and having kind of an outside view in, and also having the opportunity to kind of learn the thinking frameworks that are commonly applied to these problems. How has that changed the way you're looking at businesses versus when you were a founder? And is there any things you may have pulled out of that? Like, maybe I was doing things wrong.
Oh, 100%. Honestly, Peter, it's funny because I was a consultant. I was an entrepreneur, then consultant, then entrepreneur and consultant, sometimes at the same time. And what I will say is I'm able to be so much more, I'm able to take emotion out of it so much more when it's not my baby, when it's not my business. Marley, and I see Marley and Robyn shaking their head. You can have all of the methodology, all of the experience in the world, but when it's yours, that subjectivity is just like, it's gone. So it's really hard to step back, which is why tools like Betterati are so helpful, because you can talk to mentors who can give you an outside perspective. They're not emotionally tied in with you. So I found myself making a lot of what I would look back now and say was kind of a misstep, worked out okay. But there's been several times where, if I were to look back, like, oh, why did I do that? I was focused so much more on like product at that point when I should have been focused more on growth and marketing, but in my perspective, I'm like, oh, I got to rush and get this out the market. I got to start helping the people I'm meant to serve. And that's where that flip side comes back in, where it's so important to be passionate about your business, but not to the point where you're ignoring the things you actually need to do right for the business to succeed. So yeah, I mean, keep learning, keep growing, but never forget that you're going to lose some subjectivity when you are, looking at your own baby. It's hard to triage accordingly.
Definitely helpful. When you were actually, and we'll have questions at the end for all attendees as well. So if you think of stuff, if you don't get a chance to ask it, you can drop it in the chat, or we may just ask it as well. Question for you is, when you were building the VetGigs platform, and for those who don't know, it's a really sleek kind of interactive online platform. You create a profile, go find really good opportunities. When you were first building it, so you had the idea, you're going to build it, you knew who would use it, you kind of done some market research. When you were actually saying, okay, now I need someone technical to build the product, or I don't know, you may build it yourself, or I need to build it through, like a plug and play platform, whatever. what was your calculus like there? How did you do research into how you'd actually build it and then go from the idea to having the product?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Peter. And honestly, that was one thing that I felt my work in consulting really prepared me for, because I was able to do that analysis. Oh, building something? Yeah, this is something I do all the time for clients. Even though I wasn't a technical guy, I was more of a functional consultant and working in the ERP space. I was able to take those same lessons and put it to work. But effectively, I looked at first, what's the core functionality I need? I heard you guys mentioning MVP before, and that's so important, because if you start wanting to deliver, a Cadillac, I mean, that's going to be really hard. You got to start with a hoopty and then build on it from there. It's that initial, busted first 16-year-old car that is, or that first car you have when you're, 16, that gets you from point A to point B. Sometimes that's what you want to start with. Test it against your customer feedback and grow from there. And so that piece I felt really comfortable with. But, kind of looking back over again, one of the lessons I learned is you really need to market when it's test that idea when it's before you build it. That's so important, because you're going to spend a ton of resources, even through the best of programs, like what we learned at the beginning of this webinar here. Your time is super valuable. So spending months building something, even if someone is donating their time and helping you do that at no cost, there's still a cost to it, because it's your time and it's their time. So, do your best to validate that idea before you build it, at least in full. Then you take it to that first stage, which is that minimum viable product, to test it, past the idea stage, and then kind of get initial feedback there, but continue to get feedback and feedback and feedback. And then, you'll know if you've got something that people are willing to pay for, which is ultimately why we build it, right? So you test your hypothesis over and over again, but you want to get that feedback early, so you don't end up burning a bunch of time on something that may not be viable.
Yep, I completely agree, and that's really helpful. I think that's a stage that a lot of people have trouble with, or what is it? Analysis paralysis, is that what people say?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
yeah.
Okay, cool. I always get my random buzzwords mixed up. I almost said, we'll double click on that. I almost switched the tip. No, I think that's something that really happens, is people have a great idea, and they will stop short of doing market research, A, or B, if they do the market research and they find a gap in the market, they'll stop short of actually going and building the product, because they're like, well, I don't know how to code. There's no way I can build a website that does that. And it's like, well, Liliana just came on and offered a free way to do it. Y Combinator has a co-founder matching platform. There's LinkedIn. There's 101 ways to build something. But it's the initiative that obviously you took, Brett, to go out and do it that makes the difference. That's really helpful. Brett, I know do you have a later commitment tonight?
Yeah, I can stay on for a bit. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Well, hey, if you guys have questions, shoot them in. Brett, if we get some for you after you jump, I'll make sure to follow up with you, and they'll be in the follow-on email. But thank you so much. That was really helpful. Awesome. Sweet. Hey, so next we're going to jump to Marley. Marley, if you could start with just telling us a little about your story, how your company came to be, and in your journey to now.
Okay. So after the Air Force, I joined a very, very large tech firm, and I spent the first 30 years out of the Air Force working for big tech companies, startup companies, and then I finally ended up at a Big Four. And one day I thought to myself, I can do this better and faster and cheaper. And there's all these politics and processes that are in place that are prohibiting us for doing the best that we can by our clients. And decided that I was going to start this company called rockITdata. I had a former colleague that I'd known for many years, and he's like, look, let's jump, let's do it. And I thought, yes. I am, if anyone ever gets to know me, I am horribly competitive. I love winning. And I thought, you know what? How hard could it be? Well, within that first 3 months, I went through 2 partners, decided that one day I wanted to just stop and go back to my Big Four consulting job, as I'd mentioned before. But I couldn't get rid of my customers. My customers that we were going through the time of COVID. We were doing AI before AI was even popular. We were helping large pharmaceuticals get COVID products to market faster, leveraging the technologies. And I just thought, when I can wind down my customers, I'm going to go get a job. So I will tell you the biggest lesson that I learned when you're starting your entrepreneurial journey is manage your expectations. One, I wrote out my business plan. I thought that I would be able to go, probably a little bit too personal, but I thought I'd be able to go at least 6 months, 3 at a minimum, 6 months at the most without getting a paycheck. It was 3 years before I got a decent sized paycheck. And it was many, many employees that we had to put in front of us who had to get paid. You know, as leaders, leaders eat last. That was really hard to say Friday afternoon, but eat last, and everyone else got paid. And it took me a very, very long time to finally get a paycheck, to get our services out, to even to wind down our customers. Anyways, long story short, we couldn't wind down our customers, and we kept getting more customers. And I got a really good partner who came in and said, we're going to do this and you're going to keep going. You can't give it up because you've got an amazing business here. And my other big lesson learned is that if you're going to build a business and you're going to have partners, you're going to get married to these people. You're going to get married to these people, and you got to be careful, because sometimes you may not have the right vision, or maybe you don't have the right tenacity to stay together. But you got to know that it is really, really hard when you bring on partners that you're not aligned. And even from the beginning, you have to really vet that. And it took me 3 swings at the plate. I finally got a great partner who made me better, who help me make decisions. I don't know. I think it was Greg. I don't remember who it was who said, I don't remember. Anyways, it's hard. And you have to think about, when you are passionate about what you want to do as an entrepreneur, the things you don't think about are, now I have to understand HR policies. Now I have to understand what taxes are in other states and what that means, and what is a 1099. So no longer are we doing AI development in pharmaceuticals. Now I have to look up and teach myself, or hire the right people to come in and really do things that I've never even thought of when you're starting a new business. Marketing, building out a website. What does your messaging look like? There's just so many things in your entrepreneurial journey that you don't think about, because all you want to do is smoke cigars, right, Joey? But there's more to it than that. And so, if you have to think about it, it is so worth the journey. You guys, one thing that you have to realize, as veterans, we experience so many things that are very, very different for the civilian community. We know what teamwork is. We know what partnership is. We know what dependency on our colleagues are. And it is such a different culture when you jump. And to the point that Brett made, there are so many resources. I did not leverage any of those because I wasn't doing work in the federal government when I first started. I had been doing all my work in the commercial space. I did not realize that there was this whole community out there that want to support veteran entrepreneurs. And you just have to find those resources. Brett did a really good job of rattling off about a dozen of them. And this program that you guys are attending right now, ask the question, ask for help, and know that there are free resources out there for you as a veteran. And oh, by the way, another data point, which I love data. I'm sorry, I'm still talking about this, but 10% of entrepreneurs in our country are veterans, and we all want you to succeed. So find a way, have tenacity, know what it looks like to have a team, and be passionate about what you do. And oh, by the way, manage expectations, because it might be 6 months before you get a paycheck. Over.
I like the mic drop at the end. That was great. that was really helpful. And yeah, I think that that's really important. I mean, it's super easy to get both positive or negative confirmation bias for yourself and saying, I'm going to start this business. There's this huge gap in the market. I'm going to make all this money, blah, blah, blah. But there may be a feast and famine cycle, much like in consulting, where you have to wait before you get to realize all of the hard work you put in. But obviously, now we're looking at the way Marley's company has grown. It's paid off, but it clearly paid off because of a lot of very hard work. So we have a couple questions. One I have is the period from leaving consulting to signing the first customer for the new company. What was that like, and how did you get your first customer?
It was about a week.
Awesome.
And it was because in consulting, I had relationships, and those relationships, everything you guys do as an entrepreneur, and I say this over and over again, your net worth is your network. You have to get out there and you have to build relationships. My customer was one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world. They were a previous customer of mine. I had become friends with the leadership team, and they came to me one day and said, we're looking to solve for a problem. And I'm like, I don't know how to solve for that problem, because that problem is AI. And it wasn't a thing that we were doing. I was doing big data, integrations, migrations of data, moving it back and forth between systems. And I said, but I will help you, because I will do a vendor analysis for you and help you gather requirements. And that's how our relationship started. And then we started learning AI, and then we were the ones, and it was great. And so that's why we couldn't get rid of them, because we were at the forefront of what AI was doing before COVID happened.
So one question I have, in Lazarus, also, if you ask question Q&A and I mispronounce your name, I am horribly sorry. That is exclusively my fault. I'm just not very good at pronouncing things. But I believe Lazarus asked about market research a little bit. So it sounds like you chose something clearly with very, very strong tailwinds. I mean, if we look at NVIDIA earnings alone, we can see that AI is, people are very excited about it, and for good reason. But you were there long before this kind of craze that stands out from what's happening in the rest of the economy. So I'm curious, when you were first looking at launching this company, obviously you were in consulting, so you were speaking with potential customers a lot. But what other kinds of research did you do to look for potential other solutions or competitors, but also just start planning to build this business?
I didn't.
Wow.
I winged it, and I said I knew what I could do really, really well, and I'm going to effing win, and I'm going to find a way to do it. And I just went out there and found the best resources I could afford to get out there and do this. I will tell you though, that was year 1 and 2. Since then, we've created product. And it's you guys, it is a roller coaster ride. And to the point that you've made, Peter, there are ebbs and flows. There are good times and there are bad times. Like, we created a product. We spent months and months and months creating a product that we thought we did we actually even hired an outside firm to come in and say, yes, here's what the total addressable market would look like if you continue to build out this AI solution. And now that we're in it a couple of years, you know what, there might be some other ways that we would have to leverage the product or solution, or maybe it just didn't go as fast as we thought it would. But if I had to take that as a lesson learned, even if you do your homework, look, a couple of years ago we had SVB Bank, right? It crashed a lot of things. We had COVID before that, where a lot of people had changed their business models, where everyone was in the office and now they're out of the office, and now we're thinking about people going back. So have tenacity and be flexible. And did I do my market research? No. I was arrogant and to a fault, and I was thought that I loved winning to a fault. And it was hard. So, but with that said, there's always going to be changes, so be aware.
Yeah, I definitely think that's helpful. And Lazarus, what I would say is, if, as far as making sure that there's not already a solution, I think it starts with seeing the problem, right? Like Marley obviously saw there's end customers wanting to use it. If there's a problem, usually there isn't a readily accessible, easy to use solution. Otherwise, people would have taken it and used it, or it's very expensive or ineffective, or there's some improvement you could probably make. hopefully. And if not, we can discover that. But for market research, I would start, you can look online, look around for companies, talk to end users and ask them what they do currently to deal with the problem or to get the result that you would provide. But generally that should help. Another question I had, Marley, is you talked about working with a co-founder and some of the difficulties of finding one, especially when you're really driven and you really want to build this thing. And I think that's really important. And also bringing folks on, because you've grown out a lot of employees, a larger company in the startup space. How did you think about finding how do you think about finding a co-founder now? And how do you think about bringing on those early employees, those first 25?
So finding a co-founder is like dating, right? You got to go through a couple of dates to find the one. And then if I had to do it over again, I would have said, let's not maybe be co-founders together for a while. Let's date for a while. Let's figure it out. Let's see if we really like each other and spend a good year. Really just figuring out if it's going to work. Have really good arguments, because that's where you're going to figure out if your co-founders are the ones for you. Are they going to be flexible? Are you going to come up with a compromise? Are you guys going to yell at each other? Are you going to have intelligent conversations? Are you going to be thoughtful? Do your visions align? Do your values align? And you don't figure that out in like a couple of months. You might find the most intelligent person who's the most, amazing AI developer, but maybe they just don't, from a values perspective, aren't aligned. And so I would say, I'll go back to what I said earlier, you're getting married and you are combining funds, and you're gonna, mom and dad are gonna come together and they're gonna have a lot of arguments about employees and go to market and processes. So find the one that is going to just, what a good partner is going to be like. Don't jump, because I jumped twice before I decided to bring on the right partner. And but when you find the right partner, it is exponential. It is exponential in helping you grow your business, because you can divide and conquer, and you're not only doing everything by yourself. You've got someone that is there helping you make the right decisions, debating the right decisions, and then coming to a compromise. But I don't know that I would be here today without my partner, who helped me be brave in making decisions. Brett, you said earlier, when you are working for a big consulting firm or another company, it's easier to be risky. But when it's yours and you're funding it yourself, most people are a lot more risk adverse. Well, hold on. Do we have to hire that consultant that's $900 an hour that has to do this around, attorney fees or lawyers or whatever? It's hard when you're an entrepreneur and you're bootstrapping it to make those decisions and hire the right people, because sometimes the right people are very expensive because they know what their skills are.
That's extremely helpful. I really appreciate that. As far as Lazarus, as far as using a legal agreement, if you bring someone on as a co-founder, that's a great question. You definitely will want a co-founder's agreement, or to give them some sort of, I guess I would assume you're giving them equity. You would want to, they're starting the company with you. You want them to buy into. You would issue them equity in the company in some way, shape, or form. Probably founder's agreement, and then you might do it through some software, but yes, yeah. And there's templates online you can find that are really easy to use.
Yeah, and to the point about founders agreements, the SBA's out there. They've got all kinds of agreements. Do everything you can with the resources that are out there that'll do it for free, that have been doing it for a very, very long time. Right. And just like those of you that are looking to start, consulting firms, and you're leveraging like a HubZone or 8A or whatever that is, if you're going after any of those set asides, doing work with the federal government, the SBA is there for you, and they will help you through all that process without having to pay a dime. Our country wants you to be entrepreneurs, and they want you to be successful. So find a way to get those resources, because they're out there to support you.
And I'm not making this up. but someone anonymously asked which organization put this awesome opportunity together. It may seem like I've gone in and asked that question anonymously. So whoever anonymous attendee is, you really put me in a tough spot. But thank you. It's Boots to Bucks.
Who's your plant, Peter? Who's your plant?
Dang it. I'll Venmo you the 25 after the event still. It's fine. We knew that there was a risk of this happening. Marley, thank you so much. That's really helpful. I think that your perspective and the jump that you made is just amazing and very cool to hear about. The next up, we're going to Joey. Joey, I see clouds of smoke coming up around you. I was really hoping that you would maybe emerge from a wall of smoke or something as we kick this thing off, but you know, what can I say? But hey, thanks so much for coming on. I'd love to hear a little about your journey. Did you use Bunker Labs, or am I completely off?
No, Bunker Labs.
Okay, cool.
Absolutely.
I tried to do a little research, so I'd love to hear about your journey from the idea to now, and yeah, just kick it off.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. So yeah, well, how we started off is it was just for me, it was just an ultimate passion of what I love doing, right? Well, being in the Marine Corps, going to the smoke pit, and I enjoyed that camaraderie. And something that I'll always say, I don't miss the circus, but I miss the clowns. And those times where I go overseas during training, the smoke pit was where people, even non-smokers, went, and we just enjoyed that camaraderie. You could be in all your gear, sweaty, fatigued, but those moments is truly, truly memorable. And when I was done with my service back in 2011, and with my business partners, he got done, and he smoked a lot of cigars over when he was in Fort Hood. And when he came back every weekend, he just moved to New Jersey. He's from Vermont, and he didn't know anyone but me, but every week we would just smoke cigars. And from there, I just enjoyed the passion. It just reminded me of how much the human connection matters. And that's how I built our business, the human connection. And when I found out that because of cigars, I've had some of the most incredible conversations with it. And right, our company is a product service based, where we come in, we have cigar rollers, we bring cigars there, but ultimately our main mission is to create the human connection. And my journey as an entrepreneur is I took something that I really loved and turned it into a business. I mean, now I could say I drink and smoke for a living, and not a lot of people could say that, right? So something that I loved, and some key points I would love to share is one of the first things I started with my journey is I had to plan. For me in my military career, I was a Marine Corps grunt. I went to a Norwich University, and I was just did our NROTC. It was just planning. Without proper planning, gives piss poor results. And ultimately, if you don't plan, you plan to fail. And in business, it's the same way. When I started out my business, same thing like everyone that said it here. I use so many amazing resources from local colleges to organizations like Bunker Labs to be able to utilize the skills and kind of knowledge necessary to grow my business. So I started off with my marketing plan. I started off with my business plan. I started off with my financial plan, put that all together, and my SWOT analysis. I didn't know any of these things. Listen, y'all, I'm a history major, coming in from a public school system downright in New Jersey. Everyone that I grew up with were blue collar folks. Nothing wrong with that. But I didn't know anyone that knew anything about business. But in today's age, I was just reading. I mean, we consume so much data that it's unbelievable. So where did I turn to? A lot through Google. Right? Well, how do you create a business plan? How do you create marketing? I'm continuously learning. So my first thing that I would love to share is plan, plan, because when you plan, it gives you kind of like a goal to reach. Because if you don't have anything to aim at, like what are you shooting at? Right? And so some of us, for us grunts here, it's like, yeah, make sure you know where your target is. A second thing I love to share is be honest with yourself. When I started my business, I had a full-time job, and I was working 40 hours a week, and I was working additional 40 hours a week. But I was honest with myself because I said to myself, listen, if I treat my business as a part-time hobby, I will be paid as a part-time employee. And let that sink in really quick. And there's nothing wrong with being, hey, listen, I just want this as my side gig. I want to make a couple hundred here and there. I don't want anyone to take away your thunder. But if you tell me you want to build a business, man, you just listening to Marley and and the other speaker here, it's exactly it, because stepped in and they went right into it. So what I love to say is just be honest with yourself. You know, if you want to take this to a whole new level, but you're not putting in the time, the effort, you're not going to get the results. It's simple as that. What I love about business, it's a simple equation. Simple equation. It's black and white. You got to do it. You got to produce to get the results, right? And you got to create the effort. And when you hear our stories, listen, 5 years ago, I never knew this business was going to grow into what it is now, right? We were but I knew I had a plan to make it happen, but I was honest with myself to grow this business as big as it can be. So that's my number two kind of like tip there. Be honest with yourself and don't let other people dictate. Don't let other, what's it? Comparison. When people try and compare you, I think that's the thief of joy. I think you should celebrate your wins, right? And I never compare myself to anyone else. I'm competing against myself, and that's all I need to know about, right? I don't, and don't let, I always tell people, don't compare yourself to me, right? Especially, the blood, sweat, and tears that many of us in this channel and some of you listening to now have felt. Listen, it's a hard game, but the results are awesome, right? To go next is put your ego in your back pocket. Listen, you're talking to a Marine grunt that was just like, yo, ego, Marine Corps, grunt, blah, 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 right? You got to put your ego in your back pocket because as you come out of your service and you go into entrepreneurship, man, it's a rude awakening, right? And you got to know, that you're not the smartest person and you don't deserve anything because you got to have the service. I'll say as simple as that. You know what you should treat it as you are that private, you are that second lieutenant that first checked into your unit. Who do you look up to? Your NCOs, your senior officers. Do the same thing in business. I'm so fortunate to have Marley here because we share our same compassion and we're like the captains of a ship that we get to talk to each other. Because let me tell you something, if as a CEO, as a company, leadership is a lonely road. And a lot of people, I'm sorry, I'm kind of like this is the nit gritty, but you need to understand this because you got to know what you're coming after because I'm going to tell some good stuff too, right? It's a lonely road, but when you have these things like Veterati, when I hear Bunker Labs, your SBA, there's so many groups out there, even minority business groups. Get together and find that tribe that you want to roll with. And as I said before, I don't miss a circus, but I miss the clowns. Listen, when I get in a group with Marley and some of our other fellow veteran entrepreneurs, we have a great time, but the business talks are incredible and we're so transparent with each other. So I think that's super important. And then also as an ego, ask questions. I think growing up, people are saying like, hey, put your hand down, don't ask questions. I ask questions in business and I ask people, how did you do that? Do not be scared to ask questions. Listen, if they don't want to give you the information, that's fine. I'll just Google it. But you know what? I talk to people a lot smarter than I am who have bigger businesses and marketing. I ask them questions. How much are you making? How much are you paying your employees? How do you do that? What's your strategy behind that? Ask questions. When I started off my business, I asked questions to fellow business entrepreneurs and other cigar companies from around my area and other areas around. I became good friends with them, and it's kind of like we do collaborations together. So I think that's a huge thing of asking questions, right? Another key point is mission first, people always. You're the captain of the ship. Guess what? You had a bad hire. That's your fault. A client had a bad experience. That's your fault. If communication's bad within the team, that's your responsibility. Listen, as a CEO, you have the duty, you have the obligation to be able to lead your team. And when you say people first and leaders eat last, that's exactly it. Because if there's some breakdown and nothing's been communicated, you are held responsible to your company. Listen, when we talk about the Mobile Cigar Lounge and our team members are there, they're representing the company, and I take that into huge effect. So, and I think that's a huge thing that people need to understand that as you build your skill set, right? And John Maxwell talks about this. It talks about 3 lids for those of you who are readers and self-improvers. You talk about operational effectiveness, belief, and leadership. And you have a lid of how you're able to kind of like rate yourself. But the thing is, if you're a level 5, that's as high as you go. Like you cannot lead people higher than you. So constantly, I'm always learning, sharpening my skills, because if I'm going to lead people with operational effectiveness, belief, and leadership, I have to raise my lid so the people can see that and believe that. And who are you inspiring? Right, that's a big key thing. I know I'm talking about cigars, but listen, this is business, right? And I think that's so important, what I learned in the military: mission first, people always. And the last thing that I would love to share is you cannot go far eating a humble pie. And a good veteran friend of mine said that a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, before I did 12 weddings in 2019, and we did over 800 weddings last year. We're about to take over 1,000 weddings this year, right? And the first thing he told me is you cannot go far eating a humble pie. And something that other people were talking about, it's just, I believe that marketing is senior to sales. And what I mean by that is you have to be loud. You have to be confident in yourself, your company, and your product and service. Because ultimately, if you're an entrepreneur and you're going out there, you got to market. I don't care. You might have the best product around, you could have the best service around, but if no one knows about it, they're never going to buy from you. So that's why I'm a big believer of marketing is senior to sales. You can't go far eating a humble pie. And listen, when I first started out, I was loud and proud of my company. Everyone knew I took my job seriously. Some of us sitting here, some of us listening to now, your family members don't even know what you do. Every one of my friends and family know what we do. And this is not just to go into the crowd. This is to inspire you. Be like, listen, I am so confident in myself, my product and service, and my company. This is who I am, and this is where I'm going. And I think that speaks volume when you're especially as an entrepreneur. But those are the biggest things I have to share. One is you have to plan, right? Especially going from military backgrounds, from people listening, you have to plan. You have to be honest with yourself. You want to make sure you put your ego in your back pocket, find your tribe, mission first, people always. And lastly, you cannot go far eating a humble pie. Get out there, be loud, be proud. You are an entrepreneur. Not a lot of people go through this journey. And it's a hard journey, just like 10% of Americans don't raise their right hand. A lot of entrepreneurs, what's the statistics? 90% fail within their first year. And then out of that percent, 90% of that don't even make it to see 10 years. For me, I compete with myself, and that's what keeps me going. But thank you, everyone. Thank you for Peter for putting this together. Once again, my name's Joey with the Mobile Cigar Lounge, and as always, sip, smoke, and celebrate.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think if you just listen to the way Joey closed that one, you can tell that he's pretty good at branding and marketing. So notes to be taken. I think, Joey, something that you said that definitely I can agree with is, really nobody's going to believe in your mission as much as you do. Especially not in the beginning. In the beginning, no one's going to believe in it except for you. And so if you don't believe in it and you're not promoting it and you're not exuding faith in the future of this organization, it's going to be really, really hard to get other people on board, which I think was really helpful. Something I have a couple questions in the chat about and also curious about. Did you raise any money at first? How did you go about getting the funding to set up the mobile cigar lounge?
Love it. We bootstrapped it, right? Savings that we did. So great thing is, I don't know about anything, nothing wrong with that, but that's something that we love. But we totally bootstrapped it. What that means is we use our own money. My partner put in his personal savings. I had personal savings. My other partner had personal savings, and we put all that money together. So we bootstrapped it. We started off, doing, I think I did my revenue. 2018, we started in September. I think we did around 8,000 in revenue, and then last year we took over $1 million in revenue. Just from that alone, and that adjustment of just bootstrapping your business, like, you can do it too. So don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
That's awesome. Yeah, for those asking, if you are in a space, I mean, first, before you go and raise money, I would consider the impact of you raising that money on your future wealth if it does work out. Because if you raise a lot of money right now, you're going to give up a lot of your company at a bad valuation.
Correct.
Nobody's going to think that your company's worth $10 million before you have a working product. Nobody. Unless your name is whoever the WeWork founder is, because apparently that guy can raise money as much as he wants from anyone. But No, I'm just kidding. But so it's difficult. And so options like what Liliana proposed of using them to build a product, or what Joey did of bootstrapping, are great options. Other options include going and finding an angel investor who is likely a wealthy individual or a venture capital firm who's willing to seed your company. And there will often be a disagreement about how much it's worth, but there's ways to get around that, like earnouts and safes and other things. But you will likely, I would say, first look to see if you can do it without raising money, and then raise money after you have a product. But if you have to raise money, look to an angel group, and there's actually some veteran focused ones. Joey, a question I have is, were you a cigar maker by trade before this started? Was your experience just an aficionado and lover? And how did you take it from this, the idea, to reality, and actually have this physical thing built that's now going around the country?
Yeah, as I look back, and I love these talks, I always look back to, 5 years ago. I didn't know how to roll a cigar. I found someone who was from Cuba who rolled in the Cuban factories, and I spent 8 days with them, didn't speak a lick of English, and we spent 8 to 9 hours just rolling cigars. And he's just hovering over for me and just learning how to roll and do the art. And for me, developing my palate and knowledge, right? Because if I'm going to train team members, I gotta be the person that knows all these things. And when I talk about information, I Googled a lot of things, right? I Googled a lot of things. I watched a lot of videos. I attended a lot of events. I also started, learning from others, and which led to, I don't know if anyone could see, powered by JC Newman, that led to a partnership of partnering with the oldest American cigar company in the United States. They're located in Tampa, and we've been partners since April, and they've been supplying us premium Nicaraguan tobacco.
Wow.
And the great thing is, I've taken 4 of my guys. We went over to Scotland, and we did a research and development with scotch and some beers. And then we went to Nicaragua. I took 9 of our other team members, and we went there and we learned from seed to shelf. So, research and development, right? So for us, I learned a lot just by, I'm a history major, so I got to research these things, right? And
Yep.
I always want to make sure I knew more than enough than either my competition or my client. So yeah, I wasn't by trade. I just loved smoking and drinking. So in moderation, of course.
That's awesome. That's so cool. I was going to say, I feel like, my research and development at work, I feel like I'm spending a lot of time, in Microsoft Excel, but I'm now thinking about how I can make the switch over. But hey, Joey, thank you so much. Hey, where can people find out about the Mobile Cigar Lounge? Because that's definitely something that I'm sure people are interested in and want to hear some more about.
Yeah, absolutely. You can visit our website at www.themobilecigarlounge.com. Follow us on TikTok at the Mobile Cigar Lounge, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We're posting a lot of great videos on how to cut and light cigars. We're
Okay.
showing a lot of couples on, kind of like where to have us, especially at weddings. So if anyone's getting married there, I'll hook you up if you decide to reach out to Peter. But for us, you can find us on all social platforms at the Mobile Cigar Lounge. Thank you for the support.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us. That's very cool. I'm gonna have to make an excuse, for an event so that we can get you out here. Maybe Boots to Bucks next fundraiser or something. Awesome.
We're in.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Hey, Robyn, we've got you up next. Robyn, I am very excited to hear your journeys. It's one I've been able to see. And then Greg, we've got you next, and I'm pretty pumped for you guys. So we'll jump in with Robyn. Go right ahead.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I'm a Navy veteran. I'm a country girl from Indiana who joined the Navy supposedly to see the world, and ended up learning how to change the world. So my journey in the Navy, I went in the Navy in 1979, so a time when women weren't allowed to serve in certain roles, a lot of roles, simply because we were female. And so that really started my advocacy journey of saying, if I have the skills, if I can pass the test, if I can do all the things, why don't I get an opportunity? And then when I got out of the Navy and no one could translate my skills and figure out how to help me get into a job, a career that paid me what I was worth, instead of having to start my career over like I did, that was really frustrating. And then I ended up in HR, so spent much like Marley, ended up in a career for about 25 years and learned that side of the barriers that people face trying to get hired. But then I met an Army veteran's wife in a chat room. We were working on our master's degrees, and she commented that her husband had been out for 6 months and could not get an interview. And he was spiraling downward and could have become one of those statistics, unfortunately. And it really hit me hard. And I was like, how is this still happening? It's 25 years later, 9/11's happened. I mean, there's just so much technology. Why is this still going on? And so that really was the catalyst for me to say, I have to do something. I didn't know exactly yet what it was at the time. I just knew that I needed to figure out how to bring something to bear that would connect veterans and employers for their skills. So in 2014, I finished my master's, graduated, started volunteering for a veteran service organization here in South Carolina. I had a 6-figure paycheck coming in. I was working from home. I had I was kind of semi-retired, set my own schedule. But as I started working for the Veteran Service Organization and really getting back into the military community, the kind of the impact, the purpose came back to me and outweighing that 6-figure paycheck. So I jumped in, took that leap of faith and decided I was going to leave that 6-figure paycheck. Not something I would technically recommend to everyone, as it's been said, you have to plan. I just jumped in saying I knew I could do this and I was going to do it. In hindsight, I probably could have kept my 6-figure job for a little bit longer and worked while still building the company. But so I jumped right in. But the funny thing was, in 2015, so I left corporate America in 2015. And then in 2018, I went to see The Greatest Showman in January of 2018. And I walked out of the movie theater going, I am going to do something amazing this year. In March, I was at a meeting at BMW. They said they needed to hire more veterans and they didn't know how to find them. They didn't know how to connect with them. And I'm like, I've got an idea. And then Kismet happens, fate happens. The lady that cleans our house dropped the check that I wrote to her on the ground. A programmer, developer, found it, happened to know me, called me and said, hey, I found your check, blah, blah, blah. We got to talking. He's a software developer. I'm like, I have an idea. I need software built. And that's really kind of how it started. It was just really, I wanted to do something and I was going full force into it. Now, again, mistakes. I've got lots of lessons learned, Peter, and you've probably seen some of them on my Founder Fridays, but and they're good to share because it is hard. It is so hard. And being an entrepreneur can be lonely. You don't want to let people down. You don't want to give up. You don't want to be embarrassed. But you have to ask for help. You just have to along the way. You can't do it alone. And there's so many people out there, just like Marley said and Joey said, the veterans out there, the community in the small business world, they want to help you succeed. So reach out. But I went with this developer. We were too small for them. So he recommended someone. Well, I didn't do enough due diligence and I just jumped in. I took the first development company that came along at $180 an hour. Oh my goodness. Please don't do that. Please don't do that. Anybody thinking about go to Liliana, just don't do that. Don't do what I did. And then we just built it from there. So, it has been a great journey. I absolutely love what I get to do every day. Changing people's lives, helping veterans, helping military spouses, people with disabilities, get connected to employers who truly value them for the skills that they bring to the table. So it is just a tremendous, but it is a roller coaster. You're going to have extreme highs and extreme lows, and you got to figure out, just like Joey said, plan through those. You have to know where you're going. You have to have that roadmap. And there are so many resources. SCORE, you can get a SCORE mentor, business people that have been through those journeys. Just a lot of resources. The VBOX, those veteran business outreach centers. will help you with your small business development centers. So there's so many resources out there. Find a mentor. One of the things that I also didn't do, another lesson learned, is I had a board of directors, a board of advisors, but they were pretty much my friends. So they really weren't like tough on me to say, hey, Robyn, we haven't made any revenue. Are you going to get up off your, behind, make some revenue? They weren't hard on me. They didn't hold me accountable. So find a board, find mentors who are going to hold you to task. Because you can get off on tangents and think your idea is great. Just you've got the best thing in the world, but if you haven't vetted it, if you haven't done your market research, and you're not going to listen to it, like Marley said, the emotions come into it. Don't tell me my baby's ugly. That's just that. I'm not listening to that. But if your clients are not buying, or you're not giving them what they need, then you're never going to make it. So just really being able to listen to those things. But I absolutely love what I get to do. Our staff is all veterans and military spouses as well. So we absolutely live our mission, but love what we get to do every day. I went a long time without a paycheck as well. And I've cashed out my 401ks. I've cashed out my husband's IRA. We sold a house. Again, you have to know you're committed to this, truly committed, and really know your why. One of the things I recommend, and if anybody ever follows David Meltzer, great speaker out there, sports marketing guru, but he talks about know your why. Know what you want in a day, know who you can help, know who can help you, and think about that every morning, and just live that, because the times when you're down and no money's coming in and your bank account's negative and all those things, everything's going wrong, you're going to need to tap into, okay, why am I doing this? And if you're truly not passionate about it, there's 10,000 ways to make your life easier. But if you truly want to live your mission and be there, we will never give up. We will just keep going. I think we were a couple of years ahead of our time in the whole AI skills-based process, but it's kind of the buzzwords now. So we're kind of finding our footing. But just exciting stuff. And I'm just honored to get to do what I do. So thank you, Peter.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's been really a pleasure to watch your team come together and grow and be able to work with you a little bit, because it really is an awesome group. Did you raise capital at all or use any of the SBA programs?
Yeah, so we had family and friends put in some money. Again, like Marley said, you bring on partners or let friends invest in you. You gotta take the bad with that situation, because we took money from a very good friend, but when we weren't able to get back a return for them, it was like, when are we going to get our money back? So you got to be careful. You got to know what you're getting into and what the impact, like it's been said, what the impact is on your business. We thought we had a business loan from a big bank, and then they pulled the rug. So I did was able to get a loan from Lift Fund. So an SBA backed program, really great opportunity. So again, you just have to really look at, what the impact is. I even getting that Lift Fund loan, which was a lifesaver at the time, I had to put them on my mortgage. They were, a second mortgage on my house. I had to sign my life insurance policy over. So, there's just, you got to know what you're, signing up for. Do your due diligence. Don't just take the check and run, because you just never know what those hidden impacts are.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Some of the loan covenants or term sheets that you'll get slid across the table can be predatory at best. That's really helpful. So I think something I'm really curious about is so you found the developer to build your product, but you aren't necessarily a technical person. So how did you take your idea for this product and get it into technical specifications and make it work? What did that look like?
Technically, I am a technical person. I
Okay.
did data processing in the Navy and I did programming in the Navy a long time ago. So I understood the ones and zeros to a degree, enough that I could be dangerous. I certainly can't code Python and anything that our program is developed in. But, when we got started, it was really as simple as, here's what I wanted to do. We just kind of whiteboarded the thing. Here's what I wanted to do. And then we just started, kind of taking the arms out from there, and then created wireframes. So when you do this, it should do this, kind of like flow charts kind of thing. So somebody that's not technical, you're almost better off to a degree. There's always pros and cons with things, but because I could ask the questions that my perspective, because I didn't know certain technical levels, I could ask the silly questions that we could have gotten tripped up on had we just gone forward and programmed it a certain way. So, but I knew enough to, ask the questions and be aware of how it should work and be able to test it that way.
So, and a two-parted question similar to the one I asked Marley. First part is, how did you get your first customer? You don't have to tell us who they are, of course, but how you got it. And then what you've learned about that process of going out and actually acquiring paying customers, because it's not an easy process.
It is not an easy process. So we really, and still to this day, we have not done any sort of ads or marketing or anything like that from a paid perspective. We use our network.
Right.
We truly use our network. And we built that up over the 5 years. So in the very first one was just, I went to an event, started talking at events. 1 million cups is a great opportunity for small business entrepreneurs to start talking about what your business is. So I met a lot of people there. I've got involved with, again, the SBDC here in South Carolina. So the events that they hold, I just started getting out and talking about what we were doing. Very similar to what Joey said. You got to get out there and talk about what you're doing. Because if you don't talk about it, who's going to, so yeah, that was how we got our first few clients, and it's still how we get clients today, is through our network and being out in the community, out talking to people, going to events like Military Influencer Conference, and just a lot of different military events, particularly. But just all events in anything you can get out there and participate in. I just also Disrupt HR for us at being an HR tech kind of company. So that was a good one for us. So yeah, just getting out there and shouting from the rooftops who you are and what you can do.
Super helpful.
What was the second? Sorry, Peter, I don't know if I answered the second part of your question.
No, getting the first customer. I think that you did help with that, definitely. This is a good question, because you, I guess, and then this last question, and Greg, we're on to you, which I can't wait to talk a little bit about seeing Valor as well. But Robyn, with your software, right, you had this AI software you wanted to use that's proprietary in a sense, and when you were networking and pitching companies to come get onto it, maybe not companies, maybe staffing firms or et cetera, did you ever have a fear that somebody was going to go take your product? How did you balance the information equilibrium of give them enough to buy in, but not too much to take it?
I'm a firm believer that there is an abundance in this world, and that the more we help each other, the more we share knowledge and partner, the better off we will all be. So I really have never had a fear of telling people what we do, how we do it. Now, of course, we have, our proprietary, process and our proprietary tables. We don't talk about the kind of the secret sauce, but we do go out and collaborate with, we collaborate with other veteran organizations that do similar work to what we do, because I believe that we're better together and that we can help each other know what we don't know. Or, I'm not going to sit here and say that we are a resource for everyone. There's so many resources out there, and we want to be helpful to those that we can truly help. But it's collaboration for us, and not everybody thinks that way. So we just really have never felt like we can't talk about what we do, or how we do it. we're still really the only ones that don't use a resume in trying to connect veterans and military spouses to employers. Even though we've been doing this for 5 years, people still haven't picked up on that because it's a tough road. Everybody wants that resume, and we're trying to say, no, you don't need a resume. You're trying to judge somebody on what's wrong with them rather than what's right with them. So I'm all about collaboration. I think we should all help each other because that will just make the world. And there's an abundance out there. There's 18 million veterans out there. There's 12 million military spouses out there. There's 33 million businesses in the US. Plenty of space for all of us to cohabitate.
I think that's one of the things that I know I and the members of my team really appreciate about working with you guys, and some of the conversations we've been able to have is that the goal is universal and it's not a competitive natured thing. It's really collaborative, which has been great. So thanks so much for coming on. That was really, really amazing to hear.
Thank you.
The next individual, Greg Tomchick, has been kind enough to support Boots to Books events in a variety of ways. He's a cybersecurity expert. He has built a business. He's a former athlete. He's done a variety of amazing things. I think you started a podcast as well, Greg, if I'm not mistaken. Started a podcast as well. So it's a man of many talents, definitely. But he supported our events in the past and just been a really awesome resource. It's been really cool to watch your company grow, especially given that we connected, I think, at the beginning of a really exciting cycle for you guys. And so we've got to kind of witness it from the outside. But I'd love to hear about, the impetus to start your company and the path to today.
Yeah, no, Peter, pleasure to be here. I'm proud of you guys for how far you've come. I think it's an entrepreneurial story for everybody to follow. It shows that when we come across pain and we turn that pain into passion and that passion into purpose, that's where entrepreneurship really becomes something that means something to yourself and pushes you through those obstacles. You'll kind of hear that through my journey. And that's, as Peter mentioned, I've tried a lot of things. I've started over 8 businesses. Only 2 of them have been somewhat successful, over 6 figures. The first one had a cyber attack, and that was my painful journey that I bring into the business I have today. I want to hit on 2 things that Robyn mentioned, which I think are extremely important. I look at business as collaboration, not competition. As you can imagine, I was a professional baseball player, so competition and being competitive is always top of mind. But the only way we've built Valor Cybersecurity today is through collaboration with other cybersecurity companies that are helping lift us up and put us in better positions where most people are trying to compete against them. We try to find friendships and relationships at those intersections, and they lean on us because we're specialists at what we are really passionate about and really are experts at. And it's not overall cybersecurity. We have a niche within this big industry that we've been able to really find and thrive within. I think another thing that has been mentioned a couple times here is when we went out to build this company, the only reason it's been successful is because we went to probably 35 people at the beginning and said, will you pay us now for this service that we have done in the past and are going to continue to develop? Will you pay us, upfront for us to prove to you that this service will be valuable to you over the next 3, 6, 12 months? And we had 5 customers out of those initial 35 discussions say, yes, we'll pay you. We know it's valuable. We know we're going to need it as we develop our technology solution. And that's how we started the business. And one of the obstacles we went through is because we had those yeses, we got kind of a big head and we went out and tried to raise angel funding. We did get funding from the wrong investor who didn't really understand the business, but knew we were very successful. And I'll tell you the story about kind of how I decided to start the company. But we made some bad decisions along that initial 6 months, and it took us a year after that to really untangle it. We had to get rid of some folks. We had to, bring on some part-time folks. So it's a very messy journey. I call it the beautiful mess because it's one of those things where, it's not all clean, but if you can come out of it in a way that, benefits your customers, I think that's been mentioned a couple of times, that's what you're doing as a business. You're serving people with your unique expertise and experiences to deliver value to them. And, that's not always in money. That could be their time. That could be, them giving you referrals to widen your network. So, just when you think about business, don't always think about the money. The money does come, and the money is great because it pays the bills, and we all need to pay bills. So that's something to definitely, use in that equation, but it's not all about chasing after money. If you go out and deliver value. And I wanted to start the discussion before I dive into my story on something I've learned really over the last year. Even starting those 7 companies before this, I didn't really know what entrepreneurship was. All I knew is I saw entrepreneurs and I really liked what they did and that they were able to employ people. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to build something that could bring people on, support their families, give them a passion to wake up each morning and be able to bring that into the world each day. And what I've learned over the past year is that entrepreneurship is really our ability to organize information and experiences into a product or service and then deliver it to address a defined problem. Most people, pay for things because of organization of information or ingredients or experiences. I think from all the entrepreneurs on this call you'll hear today, they've taken their experiences and organized a product or service that addresses a specific problem. And I think that's something I didn't really understand at first. I thought it was this complex, you had to have this huge technology platform and then everybody was just going to come and love it. But it's all about how you organize, how you market it, like Joey mentioned, how you describe it, how you express that experience to people and organize it in a way that's like, I want to do business with that person and I want to pay money for that experience, whatever they're going to charge. And that's typically where businesses become successful. So I just wanted to express that definition because that's been very important to me to understand entrepreneurship and to create clarity when I wake up each day and I ask myself, what the heck am I doing today? And, why am I putting myself through this pain? You have to have that, like Robyn mentioned, going back to your why. And usually my why is because I felt this pain of cybersecurity when I didn't understand it. So today I get to coach people and executives to avoid that pain. And that's typically why they pay us, because I've expressed a pain that they don't want to experience or they've experienced in the past, and they want to pay down that risk, as I say, in the cybersecurity world. So just a little bit about kind of my story and some of the lessons I've learned along that journey. So I was military born, 2 Navy parents. We moved all around the country. We're able to meet, just some incredible people, all different types of cultures, all different types of backgrounds, as you guys know. And those conversations that I was able to have as a kid with some of the most fascinating people in the military community, really set me up to be a curious kid, now adult, but to be able to just be the person that's continually asking why, why are you doing that? What got you there? What made you do that? What made you make this pivot? That is the only reason that I'm able to be in the position I am today, because I'll go up to anybody in the community, and just, it could be somebody who's working a job, at a bar, at a barista or somebody at Starbucks, and just asking them, hey, what are you thinking today? Like, what are you enjoying doing, with your day to day, or, just off the wall questions, or walking up to somebody who, just spoke on stage. I got to meet Dave Meltzer a few weeks back, and I just went up to him and said, hey, what do you really enjoy, about your day to day? And he said that being in front of people and speaking about his experiences is what, why he wakes up in the morning. He has all these multi-million-dollar businesses. He employs hundreds of thousands of people. But he said the one thing that when he gets up in the morning, he really enjoys is knowing that either that day or in a few days, he's going to be on a stage talking to people about his experiences. And that's been one of those things that I've caught wind throughout my journey. I love cybersecurity, but I love being on stages and speaking to people about my lessons learned and experiences, and the experiences of people that I've learned from, because that's what kind of I've found is one of my passions, and I've been paid to be able to do it in certain scenarios, and that's probably going to be my future business. So you're going to find your passion in unconventional ways, and sometimes that comes just by taking that one step. I think Damon John says it very commonly. It's just like, put your foot in the pool and see what it's like. See if it's cold, see if it's hot, and then, take that next kind of step based off having that knowledge. I think that's important. So as I mentioned, I was a cyber attack victim. I had a lot of struggles through my education journey, and I ended up, going to a college on a full scholarship for baseball. I almost failed out of college. I went to a junior college after that. Was able to take all kinds of credits. Had a former military coach who really brought me down to earth and helped me realize how important academics was. And I kind of needed that shock, because I'm that type of person that sometimes I just need somebody to slap me upside the face and say, like, you're going in the wrong direction. You need course correction. And we need people like that in our lives. When you surround I call it the mom syndrome. Like, it's like, Greg, you're great, you're perfect. Like, just go out in the world and keep doing what you're doing. But you need people around you who are going to hold you accountable at all points in time and tell you, when you may be wrong or when you may be off. So it's you got to kind of make sure you have different types of people around you. I think that's something I want everyone to walk away with, and that's hard to find. You have to put yourself out there and meet all kinds of people in order to find those. It's probably not going to come through, just going up to your local restaurant or just maybe going up to the local networking event. You have to really put yourself out there and find different crowds of people to put yourself out there in. So after college, I already started 4 companies. Most of them failed. I started a software company, and that was the first time where I really linked passion to something that I could bring to the world and bring purpose to. I was developing technology for new companies. I was somebody who loved building things like Legos and things of that nature. So I was helping people develop websites and applications. About a year into it, I got drafted into professional baseball by the St. Louis Cardinals. A year into professional baseball, I was still running that company. We had people in India, we had people in Pakistan, we had 8 people at the college I was going to, and we had a cyber attack. I didn't even know what cybersecurity was at that time. I thought it was just, my dad has friends who were in the special operations community who did cybersecurity and cryptography, and that's what cybersecurity was. But I realized that the general small business was also impacted by this issue, and I didn't have anybody to call. So that was my light bulb moment of, there's got to be somebody out there who's marketing and talking about this stuff, where if this happens to somebody, they can pick up the phone and call them. And it's not just the FBI, or their local lawyer. It's somebody who has the expertise to help put out the fire immediately. So I basically played 2 more years of minor league baseball. Really found myself at a position where that was my pivot point. That was my transition, my change point, the point I needed to make a decision. I think we all get there, whether it's in the military, whether it's, you've heard today, people going from the consulting world where they've really built some great expertise and skills, and now they want to kind of take the leap. And that's a transition point, whether you're getting out of the military or you're getting out of a corporate level job and trying to take the plunge. Those transition points are points in our lives that dictate, our future, good, bad, ugly, everything in between. And, that's what's going to make your story unique. Nobody else has those exact transition points or those exact decisions. So I want each of you to think about what those transition points have looked like for you throughout your life, from being born all the way to where you are today. And putting that into an organized way, your, whatever you want to call it, your book of life, things of that nature, and pack that into a business, because that's what's going to allow you to bring a lot of value to people around you just by talking about it, for one, but putting it into some way to offer value to people, even if it's a side gig or, some type of, side business that you do for your community. I think that's something that has been critical for my journey. So as I got out of baseball, I decided I wanted to get into cybersecurity. I worked for a government contractor. I went to DC and investigated about 1,000 incidents a year, cyber attacks across the United States and internationally. And then basically from there, I was hired by the Perot family in Dallas, Texas, to build a company for them. They saw my passion for building things. They knew I had the experience in cybersecurity, and they wanted a cybersecurity company within their portfolio. We took that company. I was the 5th person on that team. We took that company to 85 people in about a year and a half, had all kinds of funding, scaled it to 8 figures actually over that 1.5 year period. But the culture was hit. And that was one of the things that, I wanted to take into a new company. I wanted to build a culture of people that really understood a new way of working. We're also used to this 9 to 5, like you have to work 9 to 5 or you're not going to get anything done. And cybersecurity was one of those careers that was around the clock. It was kind of 24/7. You were monitoring, different critical networks. And we wanted to find a way to kind of make sure people had that, work-life integration, but the balance that they wanted in their own lives to make themselves happy. And that was a great experience. But I had another pivot point after that. I realized that I wanted to build that culture into a company of services that were unique to where the cybersecurity world was headed. So I combined basically my baseball experience and cybersecurity, and now kind of started a company around cybersecurity coaching. So instead of advisory, like the corporate world typically calls it, or assessments and advisory, things of that nature, we started to frame a service as, we'll be your cybersecurity coach. You pay us on a monthly basis, and we'll coach your executives as well as your team across your company on how to protect themselves from cybersecurity threats. And that's how we pitched it when we went to those 35 initial customer bases and 5 people bought it. We now have over 50 customers, and we were able to really work with them in a way that's very consultative and coaching based, where we can meet them in the middle. I think that's a key point for everybody on the call that's starting a business. As Joey mentioned, like it's really, when you meet people in the middle and you don't just shove something down their throat, you meet an experience that they're already having with something that could enhance that experience. A lot of times people will pay a lot more money for that. I've been able to develop courses, speak on big stages. I get to run a team now. We're getting ready to hire a 6th person next week. And every single person on our team is a cybersecurity coach. So they have experience in the military. They have experience in cybersecurity from a technical standpoint. And we basically get to sit in boardrooms and kind of coach executives and managers of organizations on this digital transformation that's taking place in all of our lives, and how we can kind of make sure we're managing the risks appropriately. So it's been a fascinating journey. Some of the lessons that I've kind of teased out is, a lot of us struggle with clarity, especially in entrepreneurship. It's one of those things that takes a unhuman amount of prioritization in order to accomplish anything. So, and I'll give you my email after this, and I can send you guys some exercises. But one of the things that I like to do with anybody on my team or any executive that I work with is ask them really 4 questions, because I believe that questions are the best answers. If we ask ourselves and others the right questions, typically we'll get to the answers. But if you don't ask those questions, you're not going to find answers, and they're not just going to come to you automatically. So I always ask, people I come across, what contribution do you want to make to the world to make it a better place, or to the environment around you? Once you identify what contribution you want to have, how do you want to grow? How do you need to grow in order to accomplish that? You need to take a course, you need to get a new skill. You may need to get a developer or a development background. Once you understand how you need to grow, then you can ask yourself, what experiences do I need to have to experience that growth? Maybe you need to go, pitch some investors, or you need to, go to college, or you need to go join the military potentially to learn something specifically, or put yourself in that experience to be able to offer that to the world. And then how do you execute? I always put stuff into 2-week increments, and then break that 2-week increments into 30-minute segments. And that's been so important for me, because I was somebody that wanted to build so many things at once, that I was just prioritizing like 10 different things within a 10-minute window and trying to accomplish things that way. And it's very hard to be an entrepreneur and build a business when you're like that. And you'll hear a lot of successful entrepreneurs, like their worst traits most of the time make them the best at something. So it's kind of that balance between their craziness and then their ability to execute on it. And I've always tried to be conscious of making sure that I am being consciously competent about what I've learned and then what I'm doing on a daily basis. And that's probably something I got from athletics. But what I'd say is just try to think about time chunking, whether you're working, whether you're spending time with your family and loved ones, or trying to execute on a business. It's so important to manage your time because we get limited amounts of it. And I think you'll hear that from everybody on the call today. So just a couple kind of lessons I've learned, kind of rounding things out, is around managing your check-ins. A lot of us check in on other people. We check in on our dogs, we check in on our parents, we check in on our family members. Make sure you're managing your internal check-ins. I think we need to check on ourselves a lot of the time, and we forget about ourselves, especially in the entrepreneurial journey. And that's something I've fallen into many times, and it really becomes more and more painful. Like, I've gotten to the point where there's been months where I haven't been able to pay certain employees, and I haven't been able to pay myself, which trickles down to my mortgage, which trickles down to food for the kids. Like, that's what entrepreneurship really looks like. Unless you ask questions to people in your network who have done it and say, how did you make sure, or how could I make sure I don't put myself in this position? I didn't have the wherewithal to ask that at the beginning. I know this is going to be hard. How would you do it differently in your journey to be able to, not experience this? And I think that's critical. You are the vehicle for your business and your life. A lot of times we build companies and we think these companies are the vehicle for our development and growth, but people buy from people. So if you think about yourself as the vehicle when you're starting something, I think that's critical. And it kind of comes back to like the personal branding piece. We're all our own brand, and that's what we bring to the world. And most of the time, what people buy, each person on this call, they're buying from that person. They're buying from Robyn. They're buying from Peter. Maybe the brand is where those people are hanging out, but a lot of times they're buying from people at the end of the day. And that's critical when you're starting anything. A couple prioritization pieces. So I always talk about prioritizing your physical, mental, spiritual, and then financial. A lot of business owners prioritize those in the opposite. They prioritize financial. Then they're like, oh crap, well, if I have some time for spiritual, mental, and physical, then I'll be good to go. But it's one of those things where financial needs to be last, because if you don't have your physical health, you can't have your mental health. If you don't have spiritual health, then you can't have your mental health. And if you don't have mental health, you're probably not going to be able to make a lot of money. And that's a big thing that I try to help people connect with. As Peter mentioned, I do have a live show every Friday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern. That's been one of my biggest breakthroughs as an entrepreneur, because I love one-on-one or group conversations. And that's what these live shows and podcasts really bring to the world, is you're able to have this on a stage to share lessons learned from some of the most unique people I've ever met, with a wider audience, so that people can connect to information at the right time in the right place. And everybody learns differently. So that's one of the things we're trying to bring to the world, and really serve people with that mission. I'm big on mindset. I think mindset's huge for how we navigate the day and make sense of the world. And that's one of the biggest things I've seen. I've consulted with over 250 companies. Most of the Fortune 50 helped rebuild their cybersecurity programs over the years. And one of the things I've realized all of their executives have said is around mindset, how important their mindset is to making them successful. I did mention my investor situation. You are your best investor. And that's something to be critically focused on as you go out and build a business. If you don't invest in you, nobody else will. And that's something that, I wish I learned earlier. So hopefully that resonates with everybody, and you can kind of use that as food for thought going forward. The world is noisy. You got to make sure you understand how to information control. In cybersecurity, we're chasing incidents everywhere. We're, trying to research the latest malwares, the latest viruses, things of that nature. We've gotten to a point where we're very focused on what we research and when we research it, because we don't want to be researching malware right before bed, or we don't want to be researching the latest incident right before bed, because most of us probably aren't going to sleep. So that's critical. And then just to round things out, I think we all have a depth perception problem. So, one of the things I want everybody to think about, is your goal and your dream is way closer than you think it is. It really just takes that continuous effort to get there and see it through. I've wanted to give up in business, hundreds of times. It's kind of like I go to bed, I'm inspired. I wake up and I'm like, what the heck am I going to put myself through again? And it's just that kind of a little bit of craziness, but at the same time, it's just the passion and the why really drives me to realize that when you put yourself out there, that goal is like right there. And once you achieve that one goal, then it just becomes a domino effect. And you realize you can build anything in the world if you have the right people around you and you ask the right questions. And then another key point you also hear me talk about, which is, really just kind of rounding things out, is in today's world, we're all trying to put labels to things, to ourselves, to others. Labels and identities are what we're made up of as people. So I encourage you to consciously shape those identities, because for me, transition was, I was a baseball player, I was a military born kid, I was, this, that, and the other. And I was putting myself in these boxes of, here's who Greg is. And if you can think about your ability to consciously shape that identity, where nobody would have ever thought a baseball player would be a cybersecurity expert. It just wasn't in the traditional world. I had to jump out of my box and kind of consciously shape a new identity for myself to get myself, where I am today. And I just want to leave you guys with that note on trying to find a way to craft the costume that you want to have, craft the identity that you want the world to view you through. And you're going to be a much happier person at the end of that. So really a pleasure, Peter. This is a fascinating panel, a lot of great experts, and I'm really honored to be here.
Definitely. Yeah. Thanks so much for coming on. And, so in your situation, you guys had, you had the idea, you signed those 5 clients prior to starting the company. So you had a little bit of certainty that you had some initial clients. Was there any thought about raising money at first, or did the idea to go out and raise venture capital or an angel investor, did that come only after you had some success, or what was the thought process with that there?
Yeah, so that's all I knew was, I came from companies who were invested in big private equity. And then I went to the Perot family and they were basically like, here's a couple $1 million, like just go off and running. And it was like, that's all I knew about business was investment. I didn't see many people around me who were bootstrapping businesses. And that was to my demise. If I saw people around me that were bootstrapping, I probably would have never, I would have just, kind of went on that, client discovery journey of just keep asking people, will you pay us? Will you pay us up front? But I realized that the money was going to allow me to hire people quicker, which was going to allow me to create that economic impact, the ability to support more families quicker. And I just kind of rushed into it, which I wish I didn't do. And it goes back to, I was seeking comfort. I was seeking more comfort than I had at that time. And sometimes when we seek comfort, it doesn't serve us as best as it could. But we ended up going out getting funding from an angel investor. They were just in it for the money, I realized, and basically in the process of paying them back to kind of make sure we can kind of be on the right path. But it becomes a legal journey, and I think this has been mentioned a little bit, like through some of the like founder agreements, things of that nature. Operating agreements are critical, and business is a legal arrangement. As Marley mentioned, like it's like dating at some point, but it's also there's a legality language behind it as well. And I just encourage everybody just kind of think slow when you're going into these different decisions, and try not to rush into anything.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. And yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, Robyn had mentioned a little bit too, something about, an angel and having to pay them back, and then maybe not understanding the dynamics of the business as well. And I think that's an important thing. A lot of folks asked, how do you raise money early for a startup? How do you get capital initially? And I think something that's important to think about is having an investor is fantastic, but and I get a lot of like really niche memes, right? But there's a lot of jokes and memes about like that one angel investor who gave you $1,000 10 years ago. And it's, like a guy kicking your door down. And it's like, you want money and you need money and investments, but you also don't want somebody who's like, like be so over your shoulder that they detract from the work you do more than the value of that small investment they gave you. or however big it was, but that's definitely helpful, Greg. And I think something that's rare and really makes this event special is insights like that and in candid feedback like that, because you don't get that unless you have started a company and raised money and gone about it. So that's really helpful. Hey, we've only got about 6 minutes left here, and we changed the format up on the panelists a little bit and did the questions in between. But I'm sure we're going to have some more. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to compile some answers to the questions we did today in the Q&A, a link to watch this recording within our masterclass where another 1,000 or so folks will watch it. Founders, I hope that you're okay with that. But they'll get that. They'll get all the resources we discussed. There's a really great book. I think if Joseph is in the event right now, there's a really good book by a founder named Michael Kaplan, who's been really supportive of Boots to Books that we'll share. A bunch of other resources like Liliana's free help to build your MVP, some things to get legal document formats, a bunch of stuff. So you'll have resources, recordings, and links to all of these amazing founders' companies, so that if you want to go show them some love on LinkedIn or Instagram or anything, you can. To you guys, thank you so much for joining the panel. I completely respect how busy you are, and the fact that you would join for 2 hours as a founder on a Friday night is not lost on me. So thank you so much for giving us some of your precious time. And with that, I bid you adieu. If anyone has questions about the event or for Boots to Books, reach out to us at info@bootstobooks.com. Otherwise, look out for an email with us by the end of the weekend with all the discussed resources. And thank you so much again, panelists. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you so much.
Thank you.